Hi, everyone. Yes, I got pregnant while I was living in Vietnam. My husband was doing his PhD field research at the time. And so, being pregnant in Asia meant that I got to eat a lot of papaya while I was pregnant, which was great. And I got to go to Angkor Wat for my baby moon. So for the birth of our daughter, we found ourselves navigating Bangkok's international tourism industry, and so medical tourism industry. And so Bangkok being this great destination for medical treatments, we had lots of options and great hospitals to choose from to create our birth team. And so, someone's really excited about my story, sorry. So we're in Bangkok, and I was able to find a really great, highly reputable doctor, and she worked for this really luxurious hospital that had a grand piano in the lobby and a Starbucks and Oban Pan cafes among many of the cafe options. I found a really great doula. There's a whole doula community there. And so I was feeling really confident, even though I was miles away from home. So that confidence started to evaporate as I neared my due date. I was at a pregnancy support group and I met a friend who had the same doctor, the same doula, and the same due date. So I started to get a little stressed about I was worried that I wasn't actually going to have my birth team as there and somebody else who I had never seen before. So that was stressful. In addition to that, my baby was in the posterior position, which is also called sunny side up, which basically means because of the head position, it can cause a lot of pain and a long birth. Also, my baby's head measured in the 90th percentile, so I was getting a little stressed about that. My doctor actually warned me, I think if she doesn't turn, you might have a long and difficult delivery. Great. So the due date comes along. My friend and I, neither of us go into labor. We're checking in every day. Who's going to go first? Who's going to get the team? And so, a week after the due date, I was walking around in one of Bangkok's many air-conditioned malls. That's where I used to go to get exercise and escape the oppressive heat. And I think that my water breaks in the mall. So I run to the bathroom and I call my doula and I explain what's happening. And she's on the phone. She's like, I think it just sounds like your mucus plug. And there's no nice way to say that word. So I'm like, okay. And then I hear my doctor through the phone saying, yeah, you probably started labor. So my doctor and my doula were actually together because my friend was actually in labor at that moment. But that was okay. I was feeling like I was told it was going to take a while, so I hadn't even had any contractions left yet. So I come home, the contractions start, they keep me up all night, they're uncomfortable enough to, not let me sleep. By 9 o'clock in the morning, I was on my hands and knees in pain, vomiting in a bucket. And I was trying to wait for active labor before going to the hospital. And I thought I was in active labor, this must be active labor. So the doula's listening to me over the phone. My husband puts the phone to listen to the sounds I was making. She's like, yeah, okay, let's go to the hospital. So I get to the hospital, and I quickly learned that I'm only 1 centimeter dilated. Great. I also learned that, unfortunately, my friend's birth the night before was quite traumatic. The baby got stuck in the birth canal for 3 hours, and in the process had aspirated meconium, or poop, and had it in her lungs and got an infection. So she was in the NICU being treated. Her baby was in the posterior position, which mine also still was. So we're moving along. My water breaks to reveal my baby had also pooped meconium in my water. Great. Everything's looking a little similar to the night before. So the entire birth team, I don't know if I mentioned this, but everyone, the nurses, the doctor, the doula, they were all with my friend the night before, so they were feeling, ooh, this is looking a little familiar and kind of uncomfortable with things. So I make it to 6 centimeters, get an epidural. Things are kind of going okay, I think, except things apparently started to slow down. And so the nurses were rushing in and they were checking machines and talking in Thai, and I didn't know what anybody was saying, but they looked stressed. So my doula was translating for me. She's like, they're a little stressed out. I think it's just because of the night before. They don't want to see a repeat. And so, but eventually one of the nurses started trying to take the rings off of my swollen fingers because they were going to prepare me for a C-section. And I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but my birth plan was very simple. Like, I just didn't want to have a C-section. So that wasn't really great news for me. So they gave me this time limit. And before I had a chance to actually freak out, all of a sudden this woman bursts into the birthing unit. She's in this fit of screams, and the entire birth team rushes over to deliver her baby. I swear, she pops out this baby in like 10 minutes. And so, it was kind of great. Like, the energy was coming from the corridor, and when the birth team came back, they actually felt like they looked energized and excited. And so then they checked me, and I was fully dilated, so everything was looking up. So I don't really remember much from there. Just right as I was about to push, the doula, she leaned over to me and she's like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, when the nurses make this high-pitched sound, ee, that means push." I'm like, "Oh, okay, good to know." So the squealing starts happening, and I'm pushing, and then 30 minutes later, my baby is born. And I was just so glad that that everything happened. She was taken away from me for 2 hours because they had to treat her for the possibility of the same thing, like having poop in her lungs. But she was fine, and she came back to us later and spent the night in our room that night. So I think for me, my message from my experience is, as much as you possibly can, to put together the birth team that can support your actual birth plan so you can increase your chances of getting what you can. And that's my story. Thank you.